All right. Welcome, everyone. I am Jane Pacifico, the Operational Lieutenant for South Central Region, and I'll be your MC for this event. Can everyone hear me back there? Perfect. Thank you for everyone for being here today and for participating in the first domestic violence discussion panel. I would like to remind everyone that filming of this event is not allowed. This event is being recorded and will be available to view on APD social media website. And the recording will have Spanish closed captioning. Only panel members will be recorded by ATXN during this event. Why are we here today? Through our crime analysis, we have seen a rise in domestic violence in this area. Our goal and purpose for this discussion panel is to raise awareness about domestic violence for crime, for victim services, for victims, survivors, family members, and friends that might need help or guidance. We want to protect the victims' rights and ensure they know the available resources. We care about our community, and we want to foster a culture of support and empathy for those affected by domestic violence. So far this year, we had 3 out of the 25 homicides were linked to domestic violence homicides. Last year, in 2024, 19 of the 71 homicides were linked to domestic violence as well. In 2023, 18 of the 75 homicides were domestic violence related. This year, the Austin Police Department Domestic Violence Unit averages 8,000 cases per year. These statistics are alarming, and we want to decrease the number of cases, especially homicides related to domestic violence. Our community members have a voice, and we want to aim to provide a safe place for them to be heard. Your active participation and support is crucial in our collaboration to combat domestic violence. If you have questions during this whole event, our office community liaison, David, with the blue shirt, you can see him, he's waving his hand, looking around. He can actually take your questions, both Spanish and English, and he can provide those questions to me, okay? So now I'd like to introduce our panelists this evening and notable guests. District 3 City Council member Jose Velasquez is a community activist, thoughtful leader, and proud son of Austin. He was raised in East Austin with his 3 siblings by a hardworking, tenacious single mother who instilled him a commitment to service and the heart to fight for his community. Jose's mother worked 2 and 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table, but still found time to serve the community. Through her example, Jose learned that hard work and service to others was the only way to navigate life. Travis County District Attorney Andrea Austin has been a prosecutor since 1998. She started her career in the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, where she prosecuted homicide, sexual assaults, child abuse, and family violence cases for 12 years. Andrea joined the Travis County District Attorney's Office in 2011 and is currently the Director of Special Victims Unit. The Special Victims Unit is comprised of both family violence as well as sexual assault unit. APD Victim Services, Mariama Romero Hernandez. She is a licensed master social worker with 10 years of experience, licensed in both Nevada and Texas. She was born in Mexico and raised in Los Angeles. Majority of her social work career has been rooted in Las Vegas. She previously worked with the state of Nevada and Clark County Social Services. She's currently served as a victim services counselor in the domestic violence unit with APD, where she handles most of the Spanish-speaking caseload. Prior to this role, she spent 3 years with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Behavioral Health Unit, and Counterterrorism Team, addressing behavioral and mental health concerns. Her work is driven by commitment to culturally competent and trauma-informed care for diverse communities. APD Domestic Violence Detective Francisco Jimenez is a first-generation immigrant and born in Sinaloa, Mexico, and immigrated with his mother. He was raised in the U.S. during the school year and spent the summers with his grandmother in Mexico. He has been employed by APD for over 13 years, and most of his time at APD has been working with Night Patrol in Ida sector. where he responded to countless domestic violence calls for service. He has been a detective for over 5 years and currently assigned to the Domestic Violence Unit. He is proud to serve the people of Austin and have always tried to do his best. I also want to mention we have our interpreters here today helping us out. So we have some people in the audience who are Spanish speaking. So you'll hear a little bit of that. So hopefully that doesn't distract from today's event. Okay, so the other thing I want to say, there's no filming, is that what you're saying? And there's no videotaping. I think I mentioned that in the beginning, but I want to make sure that everyone adheres to that because we do have victims and we do have people here who want to keep their identity confidential. Okay? Okay, so now I'll ask each panelist a question, and they have up to 3 minutes to respond. I would like to remind our panelists to please be aware that the translations are being provided consecutively. Then we will have a Q&A segment where community members present can ask their own questions to the panelists. Let's begin with our first question for today. And this is to Detective Jimenez. What is APD Domestic Violence Unit and what is their role?
So APD Domestic Violence Unit investigates all felonies and misdemeanors that involve Texas, Texas Family Code. Some of those offenses are like aggravated assault, assault strangulation, kidnapping, robbery, burglary, protective order violations, and many more offenses. It's over 20 crimes that we investigate. Essentially, if there's the relation of family where it's dating, married, they live together, or they're related by blood, where they're family, then we investigate violence in those certain situations. We also investigate all stalking incidents to include like stranger stalking incidents as well. Our domestic violence is composed of 2 sergeants and 15 detectives who work alongside victim services counselors like Mariana and her team. We also have another unit which is comprised with domestic violence, which is Special Victims Interdiction Unit, and they're comprised of 1 sergeant, 1 detective, and 4 officers. They work in a plainclothes capacity. They go after high lethality fugitives for sex crimes, domestic violence, and child abuse. And they also work with the Travis County High Risk Team, which Kat runs. They assist in violations, protective orders, bond conditions, GPS ankle monitors. They check victims' cars for trackers and victims' phones for tracking apps. They help victims with surveillance cameras. They do a bunch of different things. Those guys are awesome, and they all work their butts off. The unit has on-call detectives 24/7, which respond to the following types of incidents as the lead investigator. So we respond to where a search warrant is needed to apprehend a fugitive or secure evidence, whether it be a shooting, a stabbing, anything like that. We respond to any call where SWAT is responding to a domestic violence incident. We respond to scenes where firearms have been discharged and cases where serious bodily injury has been inflicted. Most often it's a firearm or a knife is used. High-profile cases and at the request of an officer or supervisor.
Thank you, sir. Okay, APD Victim Services. What is APD Victim Services Unit and what are their responsibilities?
Yes, I'll be happy to answer that. Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. So APD Victim Services, we're here to provide members in our community support for any individuals who have experienced a crime or a trauma. Our unit for non-sworn employees, such counselors like myself, we're master level counselors with degrees in social work, forensic psychology, and professional counseling. This unit has a specialized group of detectives that are experienced in this field. For this panel, I would say domestic violence, family violence. We help individuals by responding to the scene at the crime. We also help with follow-up services in the days after, weeks, or even months. Our primary goal is to provide that emotional support, crisis stabilization, ongoing counseling, and we also connect victims with ongoing services such as shelter, legal advocacy. We navigate them through the criminal justice system, and we also provide additional resources based on their needs. But like I stated, our primary goal is to make sure that our individuals don't go through this alone.
I have a follow-up with you, ma'am. Do you guys also take reports, police reports?
So as victim services counselors, we do not take reports over the phone. What we do is we're more than welcome to listen to what's going on, and then we will let you know how to file a report. And this could be by either calling 911 or going to the online website. But yes, counselors do not take reports over the phone.
All right. Okay, this is for the DA's office, Andrea Austin. How does the DA's office get DV, domestic violence cases?
So when police officers, they can direct file. And what that means is once an arrest is made out on the street, police officers can file charges. Those go through the clerk's office and then they make their way to our office. Once a case has been identified in our office as being intimate partner violence and a felony, it then gets routed to our unit, the Family Violence Unit. In the Family Violence Unit, we have a dedicated prosecutor for each of our 9 district courts. We also have a dedicated victim counselor, much like Mariana, in our office for each of those courts as well. Once that case gets assigned to a court, it gets assigned to that particular prosecutor and that counselor. That counselor will reach out almost immediately to the survivor to start setting up resources and support. From that point forward, the team begins to be building with the prosecutor, the counselor, the investigator, the paralegal support staff to gather as much evidence as possible in order to proceed with prosecution.
Okay. Next question for Jose Velasquez. What is your experience with domestic violence and why do you feel the need to serve on this panel?
Thank you. I grew up around domestic violence. I witnessed it in my home and in my neighborhood. So it's a deeply personal issue for me. And as a Latino elected official, I recognize that my voice in these spaces matters, not just to represent, but also to help reshape the narrative in communities where domestic violence and asking for help is stigmatized. Representation is also about engaging, listening, learning, and bringing back solutions to the communities. Serving on this panel is one of the best ways that I saw that I can help affect that, and also help ensure that those most affected and are often the most unheard are centered in our policymaking at the city.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, this next question is for Detective Jimenez. Who can report domestic violence and how can domestic violence report be made?
So anyone can report domestic violence. Obviously prefer the victim to be the one to call 911, but it can be an uninvolved party like a neighbor, a friend, or a family member calling on behalf of the victim. The reports can be made by calling 911 or texting 911. Persons can call Victim Services phone number for counseling, resources, directions, any type of information they don't know what to do. Obviously, if you're any type of emergency or any type of immediate danger, please call 911. Reports can be made by a witness, and officers can respond, generate a report on the information that they have. Officers may conduct a check welfare if there's an immediate need for, officers making sure that everyone's safe. And then detectives will contact the victim to further investigate. If there is children in danger or elderly persons in danger, we recommend that you also call CPS and APS so that way they can also run their investigation and make sure that everyone is safe.
Okay, great. Okay, for Victim Services, what are the signs of abuse and is there a cycle of abuse and violence?
Yeah, the signs of abuse, it ranges. As a licensed master social worker, I've seen physical injuries. Often when we think about domestic violence, we immediately go with physical injuries. However, domestic violence also includes emotional withdrawal, anxiety, depression, changes in behavior, changes in appearance. Often individuals who experience domestic violence or who experience any of these signs, especially if they're ongoing, they develop feelings of shame, confusion, isolation, and fear. Sometimes this goes back and forth in regards to their feelings, which confuses them and makes them second guess if they are a victim of domestic violence. There is a cycle in domestic violence. Normally there's a tension building phase. Often victims talk about they walk on eggshells. They feel like they're constantly being watched. They feel like they can't talk to their significant others or to family members. They feel like something's about to happen. They just don't know when. This is the tension phase. Then the actual abuse happens. Again, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's psychological. After that tension phase, and then the actual incident of the abuse, normally comes the cool down phase. We in this professional refer it to the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase is where the abuser tries to regain trust of the victim, so they try to apologize. And it's just not your normal apology, oh, I'm sorry. These apologies are very exaggerated. Often they're gifts, there's big signs of affection, a lot of physical affection. Also promises that this is not going to happen. I'm so sorry. This is the last time. It won't happen again. An individual who has experienced this, especially at the very beginning, thinks like, okay, this won't happen again. And so because they are in a relationship with this individual who is abusing them, they don't know how to walk away because they think that the incident will not happen again. This is why it's called the honeymoon phase, and then it repeats, and it's a continuing cycle.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, this is for the DA's office. What type of cases does the Family Violence Unit handle?
At the Travis County DA's office, the Family Violence Unit handles felonies, that intimate partner violence, which I've kind of talked about a little bit before. Intimate partner violence is somebody that has a relationship with the person who's caused them harm. Maybe they have a current relationship, maybe they've had a prior relationship, maybe they are parents to the same children or foster children. If that qualifies, then it depends on the type of case. So the types of cases that we handle, just to sort of name a few, are aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, strangulation, stalking, misdemeanor family violence, if there's been a prior family violence conviction before, violations of protective order, assault on a pregnant person. Those are just some, just to name a few. We also prosecute family violence related homicides.
Okay. This is for City Council member. How has the Austin City Council advocated for domestic violence awareness and prevention?
Thank you. The City of Austin, we have a very strong foundation. We have our Domestic Violence Unit, the Collective Sex Crimes Response Model Project, and I always mess up that acronym, CSCRM, and they do very impactful work, but we need to scale the efforts and match the growing needs of our community. Over the past 2 budget cycles, our office has fought to expand funding for DVU and the CSCRM, ensuring that we're securing necessary resources for them. And this week, our team, our office is bringing a resolution that will help establish what is known as a Family Justice Center here in Travis County. It'll be the first of its kind, but we're taking a major step in ensuring that victims of domestic violence and family violence are seen, heard, and this is a coordinated survivor-centered response hub. And we also work with groups like SAFE, the Asian Family Support Services, and many others, and continue to fund them and partner with them on advocacy and other issues.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, this is for APD Detective Jimenez. What is an emergency protective order and how does it work?
So an emergency protective order, it's a temporary restraining order. So if an officer makes an arrest for a family violence offense, whether it be an officer responded to the scene, made an arrest on scene, or a detective who issues a warrant, it's essentially an officer or a detective asking the judge for there to be a restraining order. What that restraining order looks like, it's from 30 to 90 days, right? It could be 30, 60, or 90. And it depends on some certain factors. It's an application, it's a request of us of the judge, and the judge is the one that sets the conditions. It provides the victim protection. Basically, it'll be like a stay-away order. It'll prohibit the offender from, contacting the victim, threatening the victim, being near the victim's job, near the residence, near the kids' schools. It's just basically like a restraining order, and it just protects the victim. The emergency protective orders are just ones that us officers apply for. The victims can always get extended protective orders by the Travis County Attorney's Office, and those can be much longer, whether it be year, 2 years, 10 years, or even for their entire life.
Great, thank you. APD Victim Services, how can APD Victim Services help survivors of domestic violence?
Oh yes, we have a range of resources. Normally, if you have a incident and APD is called, the officers who respond to the scene, they have the ability to request one of our counselors, which they are part of the crisis response team, to come and assist with the scene. So if a counselor is available, and if the counselor responds, normally victims will receive a pink pamphlet or a yellow pamphlet. The colors just distinguishes the language. If you receive a pink pamphlet, that means that your primary language is English. If you receive a yellow pamphlet, that means it's a Spanish, is for Spanish speakers. The resources are the same. In those pamphlets, we go over resources such as emergency shelters, legal advocacy, ongoing counseling, the Crime Victims Compensation Program. It's often referred to as CVC. We also have information in regards to safety planning. Safety planning is a big thing that counselors do with our victims. We talk to them about how to be safe, especially right after the incident. This is where we go more into details in regards to the differences between an EPO, such as Detective Jimenez talked about, and a protective order, which we also call an PO. Along with that, we highlight our mainline number and we let the victims know that they are able to contact us whenever they need. If we don't answer, they leave a message and we go ahead and respond back to their messages. We often meet the victim where their needs are at. So in that moment, if they need a water bottle, I'm just trying to make it as simple. That's what we're going to go ahead and provide. But we do talk about ongoing counseling. If the victim needs to come into our office for a follow-up statement with the assigned detective to the case, then we are there to support them. We also talk to them about our community agencies in Austin, such as SAFE, and we let them know what are those services. So we're just a wealth of knowledge. It really depends what's needed at the time of situation. And like I stated in the very beginning, we follow up with the victims not only at the scene, but days, weeks, and sometimes even months.
Thank you so much. Okay, this next question is for the DA's office. What happens when a victim does not want to go forward or isn't willing to after initial report to the police?
Yeah, there's a number of reasons that we know a person may not want to go forward with a case after a domestic violence incident has occurred. And every one of those cases are different and they're unique to its facts, and we evaluate those cases on a case-by-case basis. But our office has taken great steps to improve that experience for the family violence survivor. Like I mentioned, we have a dedicated family violence prosecutor for each court, but we also have a dedicated family violence counselor for each of those courts. That counselor spends a great deal of time with their survivor. And so there's a number of approaches or steps that we can take if a survivor says they're not willing to go forward or we just cannot locate them. We will then evaluate that case. On a case-by-case basis, we'll see if we can prove the case without that survivor's participation. Sometimes we'll see if we should proceed without that person's participation. But all the while, we really want to make sure that we honor and respect each of those survivors that we encounter and we interact with.
Okay, next question is for City Council member. How does the City Council ensure that domestic violence prevention remains a budgetary and legislative priority?
Thank you. As you know, I stated before, the last 2 cycles we've worked very closely with some of the departments in the city to ensure that they had more funding, and we'll continue to do so. We want to make sure that the departments and programs that support violence prevention continue to have the resources that they need, and any way that we can expand those, we work on that. We also work very closely with our community organizations and our nonprofit organizations and the people that do the boots on the ground work that is essential to keep this movement moving. And I would just like to tell folks, as long as I'm a council member, we'll continue to press the importance of prevention efforts and fight for marginalized communities. I mean, I look forward to continuing to work with everybody in this room, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, this is for Detective Jimenez. If the suspect has an active protective order and they have children together, is the suspect allowed to communicate with the victim and their children?
So we kind of answered this question a little bit earlier. So the conditions for the protective order are set by the judge. Usually these emergency protective orders are issued by the judge right after an arrest, whether it be an arrest warrant or an arrest from the officer directly from the scene. Those conditions could be pretty strict, like no communication, no contact with the kids. Those conditions can later be changed with the next protective order or an actual protective order, where they get that from the Travis County Attorney's Office, or if not, working with Andrea's office with the Travis County District Attorney or County Attorney, and then changing those conditions to meet the needs of the family, meet the needs of the victim. And the victim does have a say as far as what conditions they want in there, so they can definitely translate their needs or requests to the district attorney's and county attorney's office.
Okay. Next question for Victim Services. What is a pseudonym and how does a victim apply for one? Will having a pseudonym mean a victim's identity remains anonymous?
I love answering this question just because there's so much of a misconception. First and foremost, I want to clarify what a pseudonym is. A pseudonym is a fictitious name. So often victims of certain crimes such as stalking, family violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, it's a qualifying crime for them to apply for a pseudonym name, which means that the victim can go ahead and fill out a form so their name could be protected from public records. Often, a lot of my victims think that by submitting a pseudonym form means that their identity is protected from their abuser. However, what I let them know is that it's not your identity from the abuser, it's public records. This form can be filled out by downloading it through the Texas Attorney General's office. You submit the form, and from going forward, if the form is accepted, then they will use that fictitious name for any public records. However, again, their abuser may be privy to this information. I'll give an example. My name is Mariana. If I was a victim of a crime, and I don't want my name to be displayed in public records, then I could go ahead and submit the pseudonym form, and I could choose the name, let's say Jocelyn. So going forward in the public records, it will be shown as Jocelyn. However, the person who committed the crime against me may be privy to this information, so it does not guarantee confidentiality. It's just public records.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. And this is now for the DA's office. Are strangulations sometimes seen in domestic violence cases?
Yeah, we actually have a number of strangulation cases in our office. Strangulation is taken very seriously under the law. As you can imagine, the potential for lethality with strangulation is really high. It's very dangerous. And it's really important that if anyone has been strangled, and when they call the police, they should seek medical attention. And that's for a number of reasons. One is sometimes strangulation, there's not visible injuries, but there may be something very serious and medically speaking, happening underneath the surface that we don't see with the naked eye. So it's really important, if anyone has been strangled, to seek medical attention. The second reason why that might be important is that when somebody has been strangled and they've sought medical attention and they're speaking to medical emergency personnel, sometimes those statements that they make to those people can become admissible if there's a prosecution for strangulation. So it's important for a number of reasons.
Okay. All right, this is now for the City Council. What are your overall goals and visions for your district related to domestic violence?
Thank you. The ultimate goal is to reduce numbers throughout Austin, and I believe we're taking the right steps to get us closer to that goal. In my district, like many others, we have neighbors suffering in silence. Awareness is always key. No one should feel like they're going through this alone. I want to make sure the survivors know where to go for help and that those resources are culturally relevant and accessible. So the goals and visions are 4 points. We have visibility, using my platform to promote resources, events, and organizations doing the work. Investment, continuing to fight for funding for programs and services. Elevation, highlighting city staff, counselors, outreach workers, and nonprofits that do the hard work and the emotional labor in this space. And ultimately, just to ensure that every person in the district feels like they live in a city that sees them, hears them, and protects them.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, and this next question is for Detective Jimenez. What happens if a victim delays reporting? Can they still report it?
Yes, they can. There's a statute of limitations depending on the crime committed, the offense level. So sometimes for misdemeanors, it's like a year or two. But for felonies, it's multiple years. It's advised that if you're a victim of domestic violence and you're making that outcry and coming forward, that you provide all the evidence that you have. I'll give an example. Right now, I have a victim who stepped forward and made an outcry. It's the first time she's ever made an outcry of the domestic violence. She's been having domestic violence since 2021. So for the last 3 or 4 years, she's been assaulted by the same suspect. She's shown me pictures. She says she has voicemails, text messages, that type of stuff. So I use all of that as evidence for my investigation, and I'm working up charges on filing on him for those offenses. So if you're a victim of domestic violence, step forward. It doesn't matter if it was last year or the year before that. As long as we're within the statute of limitations, we can move forward with the case.
It's good to know. All right, next question is for Victim Services. What type of assistance and resources does APD Victim Services provide domestic violence survivors?
Yeah, so just to repeat, we provide support at the scene. So once again, we could go ahead and respond to the scene. We also provide follow-up, which is normally what happens is that we get a referral in our office and we make contact via telephone with our victim. If we cannot contact via telephone, we'll try to do other means such as an email, and just to make sure to let them know, hey, we're here. When we make that connection, we walk them through the process. We let them know, hey, this is what may happen, and these are your rights in regards to what you should know. We go over our in-house programs. We go over the community resources that are out there, such as shelter. We talk about their right to legal advocacy. We walk them through a protective order or an emergency protective order. Sometimes after speaking with a detective, they may need to process that. So we go ahead and we're available to process that meeting with the detective, or if they need us to be present for any ongoing sworn statements, then we provide that support. Basically, our primary goal is to be there and walk with them through every step of the way until we do a soft introduction to another agency that takes place.
So for the City Council, what message do you want to send your community about domestic violence?
So domestic violence isn't a private issue, right? It's a public health crisis, and it can touch everybody, no matter where you come from. In many communities, but especially in communities of color, there's still a stigma around seeking help, especially mental health support, and that's something that I look to change. Therapy and counseling might be normalized in some areas, but in mine, it's still seen as something that other people do. And I want us to embrace asking for help and healing as a strength and not a weakness.
All right, thank you so much. And thanks to our panelists for all the valuable information. We also have questions that were submitted to us that we've asked the panelists to answer now. And then some of these questions were given to us through social media. And one of the questions is actually to Detective Jimenez. If a neighbor is the one being violent towards my family, does that count as domestic violence?
No, it doesn't. So it's, like I said, it's something within the family. So if it's, violence outside, like neighbors fighting or assaulting each other, that's going to be investigated by our central investigations detectives. which they have like a north, south, east. They're all over the city, and they investigate persons and property crimes.
Okay. And this next question is probably for the DA's office. Why investigations are never done in Texas?
I do think that's more a question of, because we don't investigate. Yes, sorry.
So,
No, it's fine.
say it again.
Why investigations are never done in Texas?
I disagree with that. We investigate. I mean, that's my job. We investigate everything to the best of our abilities.
Perfect. And I believe this next question is for you too. So a lot of these questions came from our audience out there, so we appreciate that. This one says, my 71-year-old sister is in a domestic violence situation. Her spouse was arrested last night. I want to support her and help keep her safe, but need to understand what comes next for her and how can I help? I live in Virginia, though I'm worried sick and day and night. This situation is going to end tragically. Will this session be taped for later viewing? My question is, how can a long-distance family member help keep the victim safe? What are the options available in Texas?
So the options are for victims of domestic violence. The important thing is like if he was arrested for, domestic violence, there was likely an emergency protective order that was put in place. That's temporary. That's from 30, 60 to 90 days. Obviously, it's important for the victim to step forward and get an extended protective order, right? And like I said, that can be for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years for the rest of her life. Also, while there's criminal charges pending, there's also bond conditions, which are set by the judge, and it could be no contact, it could be stay away from the address, don't commit any further violence, those type of things, and that's while the case is still active. The important thing is to also speak with Victim Services for, resources, information, and Mariana can speak more on that. Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, just for this question, as Victim Services, what I would go ahead and let the sister know is first and foremost to talk to her sister about whether or not an EPO was granted. If that EPO was granted, then the sister could go ahead and get a copy of that. We also register, we assist victims in registering through the VINE system. If the person is arrested, the system notifies you if the person who has been arrested is being released. It's a very important tool, and often we could put more than one number and email, so that's something that we could go ahead and assist with. Also, letting the sister know that if she is working with Victim Services, to contact us for that ongoing family support, because we do know that victims of domestic violence, they're not the only ones being impacted. Also in this situation, other family members are as well.
All right, thank you so much. And the next question is for Detective Jimenez. Can I have a 31-year-old family member arrested for backing me into a corner and verbally abusing me without actually hitting me? He name-calling, threats. He raises his fist but hasn't hit me yet. I am 70 years old.
It depends, right? It depends what the threats are. It can be a Class C misdemeanor, where it could be assault by threat, where it caused offense. It can also, if they're elderly, like this person, it can also change the level of the offense as well. Also, if those threats are, pretty serious, it can be considered a terroristic threat, which is a Class A misdemeanor, which is also an arrestable offense, whether it be on scene where the officer responds and the subject is there, or if not, it can be an arrest warrant that's issued by a detective. So then they can also get the emergency protective order if there's an arrest, and they can also seek a protective order even if there is no arrest.
Okay, perfect. Now this is a time we can ask our audience if they have questions. And I believe David from Office Community Liaison is here to provide me some questions. Now I'm not quite sure, let's see. In order to obtain a restraining order to be put in place, does there have to be a report against the abuser? Either one, either one.
Repeat it one more time just
In
so I can understand it.
Yes, in order to obtain a restraining order, and it has to be put in place, does there have to be a report against the abuser? There has to be a file report.
Oh, okay, I see, I see. Normally, how we would navigate this situation is by encouraging the individual to contact the protective order office and speak with their case managers to see what's going on, because often they're going to need a lot of information of details, what happened, why do they feel that they need a protective order, because ultimately, as Detective Jimenez stated, only a judge could go ahead and grant an order. So all of this information gets presented to the judge if they're able to obtain one. And the Office of Protective Orders is really great at navigating individuals seeking one with this, because they'll ask a lot of questions, specific questions. Often this interview with them could be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, just because they want to get as much details as possible.
Okay, and there's a follow-up with that as well. How can you get one or strengthen your request to receive one protective order?
Document, document, document. I always stress this with my victims. If you have text messages, save them. If you have emails, save them. If you have voicemails, save them. If you're active on social media and you're receiving ongoing threats, go ahead and save them. Save everything, because you want a timeline. You want to show that this has been going on for X amount of time. I normally let victims know, or anyone, an individual who is possibly trying to seek one and they have an ongoing history. I ask them, well, where is your evidence? Do you have any pictures? Do you have text messages saved? Do you have emails saved? Do you have voicemail saved? And their answer normally is like, no, I deleted that, but I could look back. I always encourage them to please do, and I let them know that the importance of saving all of this, it's only going to strengthen your case.
Thank you so much. That was two questions that was asked. I'm going to open up to the audience. We do have a microphone we can pass out. So if you want to stand where you are, ask your questions to any of the panelists, you're more than welcome to.
Hi.
And when you do ask your questions, please ask the question to whichever panelist you want who you want answered.
Whoever wants to answer the question. What happens if a restraining order has been granted and the person owns firearms?
Question.
Great question.
Okay, so the judge issued a protective order. Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Okay, and the judge issued no firearms on the protective order, or what?
Just what happens if that person owns firearms?
Inside
Inside the house.
Inside the house, that would be. I could look into it specifically more, but if typically, like, let's say there's bond conditions, because there's multiple things you're running into, right? So let's say there's an arrest for domestic violence. The judge may issue no firearms possession, right? If the protective order issues, if there's pending criminal charges, that's part of that, then you would have to surrender your firearms. If there, I believe there's only one exception. I think it's for peace officers. I'm not really quite sure, but it's something I can stay with you afterwards. We can look up over the law. But what I would do is I would question that court, because what you want to do is you want to follow the conditions of whatever the judge is setting, and then also what the prosecutor may have on that case. So with those type of cases, you just want to be in compliance for that, because you don't want to be held criminally liable for any further violations of the bond, the original charge, or anything like that. And I mean, I have suspects that use firearms against victims of domestic violence, and they have other guns, and some of the conditions may be that they have to surrender their firearms.
What happens if they have a license?
Like I said, that depends on what the judge's conditions are, right? It's ultimately what the judge says for those conditions, whether it be whenever there's an arrest, whenever there's bond conditions, whenever there's a protective order. Like, I ask for certain things, but I never know what the judge is going to grant or what conditions the judge is going to set. And Andrew could answer more probably of the conditions. No?
I think that's.
Yeah, it's whatever the judge says. So if that is the case, right, if you have an attorney, a defense attorney, I would contact them and then have the court, submit whatever requests that may be. Yeah.
So the victim needs to make sure that they request that when they ask for the restraining order or protective order.
I don't think so. And
Go ahead.
if I may, if the offense involves a firearm, that's going to be something that's obviously going to be on the judge's forefront, right? And then sometimes when cases are reported, survivors will talk about whether or not there's access to a firearm. So there might be very much detailed, like we want firearms if we know that there is one involved to be surrendered and taken away. Does that answer your question? Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah, but we can stay afterwards, sir. If you want to look it up, we can look up anything and get you a concrete answer. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Anyone else? Please, we want to open up to our audience if anyone else has questions for our panelists. Oh, there's one in the front. Thank you.
A lot of my clients asking the police or APD collaborate with ICE.
Okay. Okay, I'll answer this one very clearly. So when we're conducting our investigations, we don't ask about immigration status. I myself was an illegal immigrant here in the States as a kid. It's not something that we investigate. It's not something that we ask during the course of our investigation. If you're a victim of domestic violence, please call 911. Your immigration status does not matter whatsoever. So if you're a victim of domestic violence, call 911. We don't ask for immigration status. I believe the chief has answered this question. If we do have to cooperate with ICE if there's like an order from them that we have to detain a person, but that's it. But when we're calling 911, when someone calls 911, we're not responding, we're not asking any questions related to immigration status, nor does it matter. We're there to investigate a crime. If you called because you're being assaulted, you're being strangled, someone pointed a gun at you, someone's threatening your safety, threatening the safety of your children, your family, that's what we're there to investigate.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is perfect because I know sometimes it's working with other victims and survivors, they can ask the questions for them. Again, does anybody else have any questions they would like to ask or concerns or, for any of the panelists here today? Yes, ma'am.
All right, so working here at the library, we see
Yes.
a lot of the unhoused community and stuff like that.
Oh, hold on one second. We have to have a microphone.
So we see a lot of unhoused who are also possibly on drugs, but so they don't want to report, they don't want to call, So if we witness the domestic violence, is that something that APD would want us to do? If we witness that, even if the victim is like scared they're going to get arrested for whatever they're doing, or they just don't want to call or whatever, would that help build a case for them later on? Like if we were to call, you know what I'm saying? So do we call, do we not call?
No, in all cases of domestic violence, call 911, especially if it's something that just happened, right? Let's say you call 911 and you're just the witness, right? And suspect, let's just say, male punches a female in the face and she's bleeding from the mouth. Even if she said nothing happened and we have a reliable witness, we're still gonna make that arrest, right? Even if for some reason, if we can't make an arrest for some reason, let's say the suspect's gone and the victim doesn't wanna say, we can still proceed with an arrest warrant. But it's important just to document too, because one of the things that we do when we look at our cases is we always look at the history. So we look at the history, the disturbances, the prior assault with injuries, the prior threats, and they kind of paint a picture of what the relationship is like. So it's always important to, if there's domestic violence, report it, even if you're a neighbor. Like I talked about my delayed reporting case, there was an instance where the neighbors were complaining about the screaming and the crying, but nobody called 911. So it's important for anybody, because you don't know to what extent that violence is. You don't know if someone's being strangled, someone's being beat, someone's being threatened, or someone's being sexually assaulted. So it's really important that if you're a victim of domestic violence, call 911. If you hear about domestic violence occurring, please call 911. And then if you know when someone's being abused, call 911, because at least we can document it at the bare minimum. But an officer may conduct a check welfare right then and there where the victim may outcry and say what's going on. Or if not, a detective, whenever the detective reaches out to the victim may speak forward. Sometimes victims aren't ready and we don't have enough information. It sucks, but at least we're documenting it so that we can see the full history of the relationship, of the violence, and we're doing what we can with the information that we have.
So like the victim doesn't file charges, it still gets documented.
it still gets documented, but even if a victim doesn't want to press charges, like your case, right? The guy assaults the female, he punches her, she's bleeding from the mouth. We're still going to make an arrest if the guy is here, right? And if we have a good, solid witness about what happened, then we're still going to proceed with making the arrest. And whether that be if both suspects, if the suspect and the victim are positively identified, like where we know we are, let's say it's two people who are here every day. You know them by their first name and their last name. You know who they are. We know who they are. And there was domestic violence that occurred. We will still make the arrest. The state can pick up charges like Andrea was saying, and a clear cut like that. So if there's video and there's a witness and there's visible injury, that seems like a pretty solid case.
Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any other way to file a report other than calling 911? Can I call 311?
So normally 311 does not accept domestic violence reports. However, you still can. That case that I mentioned, the delayed report one, was a victim that filed that report from a different state. I don't want to share what state, but it was from a different state that she filed that report. And obviously she can't call 911 or text 911 if she's in a different state. So she still proceeded with that. And obviously when I made contact with her, we spoke at lengths, and she even gave me I think we're up to 10 pages right now on all the prior assaults. And those are the assaults that only occurred in Austin, not other assaults.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. So a lot of the cases that I see at the place that I work are of undocumented people. And the reason why, or one of the reasons why they want to report this is because they are trying to obtain a migratory relief, which is a U visa. And many people have been asking if the U visa certification is still being signed or if something has changed with this current administration.
I mean, I can answer that. I believe U visas are still being signed. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we see them in our office. So
Normally there's a very long wait list. It could take anywhere from 2 to 3 years to just get on the list. Every year there is a number of applications that they just accept, and it's just to put them on the list. Once they reach that number, then they're not taking any applications. So even if you submit your application you might be already over the number. They might be already over the number, or you get put on a waiting list, and the list could take anywhere from 2 to 3 years for any movement to go.
But this is for the application in USCIS or for the signing of the certification?
Go ahead.
So I spoke with my supervisor because I didn't know that we did this. So my supervisor is the police department, but they assign the U visa application, right? And then I believe it also goes over to the district attorney's office. So I would say apply, right? If you qualify for it, whatever, if you're a victim of any crime, it doesn't have to be domestic violence. It could be a stranger sexual assault. It could be auto theft. It could be anything. If you're a victim of crime, then apply. That would be my suggestion, right? Obviously speak to your attorney prior to any type of like that, because I can't offer any legal advice. And everybody immigration story is completely different. Like I came here at the age of 2. I didn't become a citizen until months before I turned 18. The immigration process does take a long time, but through the process of doing this domestic media campaign, I spoke to someone who told me that they did have domestic violence in the home, and it took them 10 years, but that's how they got residency in the States, was because they went through that U visa process.
Why might a victim of domestic violence not want help or remain in their relationship? For example, if I have a friend and I keep noticing bruises and I keep trying to talk to her, she kind of shuts down, gets angry, doesn't call 911, and just puts up with that kind of behavior. Why does that happen?
Yeah, every situation is different. Often it's really, really hard for an individual to remove themselves from that situation. To us, it looks very simple. Hey, you got a bruise, you're getting abused, why don't you leave? However, we also have to realize that that person also has feelings towards their partner, and those feelings don't go away from one day to the next. Also, in some situations, there is a financial need. Immigration is a big one too. One of the individuals, normally the abuser, may be the person who is documented, and then the victim may be the person who is undocumented. So they have that power over them, and they feel that if they were to report it or walk away, they're gonna have some consequences for doing that. There is cultural, religious views that also keep victims in relationships that are abusive, and every person is different. We do our very best to listen, we do our very best to understand them, and research has shown that it takes anywhere from 6 to 11 times for a victim to walk away, and that's just from them talking to someone about it.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question?
I have a very hard ask. Okay. For the record, my name is Michael Cargill, and I'm an owner of a gun store. And I represent a lot of the owners of gun stores, and we have a hard ask. And we ask that there are situations when there's domestic violence involved, and then also a person tries to commit suicide, and they're trying to go to the gun store to purchase a firearm. Our hard ask is that we ask that the Austin Police Department or the Sheriff's Department work with the gun stores to notify us when someone is possibly trying to obtain a firearm.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a hard ask, sir. And I apologize because I don't work in the firearms unit, but I'll speak with my leadership about it so that way we can route your concerns, sir. I would imagine, because you're right, there's different segments within APD, right? There's domestic violence detectives, which is me. Then you have like the mental health unit, and then you also have like the actual firearms unit itself that handles a lot of the firearms violations and the enforcement and that type of stuff that you work in, sir. So I definitely see how that could get lost between the different parties. So yeah, so afterwards just speak with me, and what information you have, I'll route it to my leadership, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So I want to thank the audience for participating. Before we wrap up, I wanted to open the microphone to our panelists, again, in case they have any last words or comments.
Last words or comments?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was writing your name down, sir. Okay. So obviously, domestic violence is something that's super important, right? If you're a victim of domestic violence, call 911, seek help. If you know anyone who's going through domestic violence, call and seek help. The sad thing about this, it's the person who's supposed to love and protect you is the person who's often the ones hurting you, right? It's a husband, it's a father, it's a mother, right? It's your girlfriend, it's someone that you love and care about. You don't want to get them in trouble, but the violence just continues and it continues and it escalates. Each year, like I said, they showed you the numbers earlier, about 20% of our homicides each year are domestic violence related. So that means a husband killed a wife or a wife killed a husband. And like the last 2 or 3 weeks, I responded to a call out where a wife stabbed her husband in the lung, right? And the knife went into his lung. I've had cases where, brothers stab each other and kill each other, or, husband kills a wife or vice versa, right? So I've responded to many of those scenes, as a patrol officer, as a detective, right? Before even coming to the unit as a detective, I had hundreds of arrests for domestic violence. So, I can use countless examples where, the domestic violence just continues, right? It escalates, and sometimes it's important that these victims leave, whether it be an arrest, whether they leave and seek resources, because that violence does continue to escalate. And if you are a victim, ask for help, whether it be calling the police, asking for resources. We're here to help you, and it's extremely, this is actually pretty cool, because you have a detective here, right, who works these violent cases, but all of the time, I'm working these cases with Mariana or Tuesday or any one of the other counselors that we're working with, and we're both working at it from different angles. I'm working at it from the criminal investigation standpoint. Mariana's working at it from supporting the victim. These cases, I talk to Andrea about them or Andrea's staff. I'm like, hey, this is what I have. This is how bad it is. She'll tell me, hey, do this, do that. And then they give me direction on what to do with the case or how to make the case better so that they can better prosecute that case. And like Councilmember Velasquez, he's helped us out, when even simple stuff like we need another car to help move detectives around to look for suspects, or a computer, or helping us just with some retirees coming back and helping us just because our caseload is so high. So all of these people up here work extremely hard for the citizens of Austin, for the victims of domestic violence. Andrea, I had a case with her where I testified last year where it was a sexual assault, and she got the guy life without parole. I worked a stabbing with Mariana where we left on the spot, went to the hospital where a child had been stabbed. We've had conversations with Councilmember Velasquez where he sat down and asked us like, hey, how can I help? How can I support you in your mission so you can help victims of domestic violence?
That was so well said. As a social worker, I've been in this field for 10 years. I've worked with the state, the county, the city. I would say that one of the things that I'm most impressed about APD is the group of counselors we have, along with the detectives and our supporting staff. I'm just amazed by the level of empathy that our unit has. Often some of these cases are very, very gruesome, very detailed, and we do our very best to help not only each other out professionally, but also to help our victims out, because at the end of the day, we're successful by connecting our victims to the appropriate resources, whether that is helping them in obtaining a protective order or safety planning with them so they could relocate to a different address, or ongoing services. I was telling this to Andrea that this unit has changed me a lot, and it has given me a lot of knowledge. And to say that being 10 years in the field says a lot. So if you have the opportunity to come and speak with us, if you have the opportunity to ask us questions, please go ahead and approach us, because I feel like anyone in this panel is gonna give you very valuable information, and we will follow up with you. So I do appreciate the time that you took to sit here and listen to us.
Thank you. Both of you, very well said. So thank you for all of you, the work that you do. Thank you for being here. I encourage you, like Detective Jimenez said, to report any case. And if it is a felony, it comes to our office. I want you to know that our office is committed to taking those cases very seriously. If you are a victim of domestic violence, we will treat you with respect, and we will do our best to honor how you feel about that case. So I encourage you to come forward and to report. So thank you to everybody.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that showed up. Thank you to our PD and all the community partners that put this together. And I'm inspired by the amount of just unprecedented collaboration that there is between the county and the city and our PD and our nonprofits now. And I think we continue working at this level, and we're going to see a lot of good results.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And we do have a question from one of the audience. Go ahead.
En español. It's a question in Spanish, please.
Bueno, más que nada, un rechazo por la niña que tiene, ¿verdad? Ella a veces está con la porque muchas de las veces tenemos miedo de algunas otras personas, es porque quizás la persona que nos está abusando nos ha bajado nuestra autoestima para hacernos creer que nadie nos va a escuchar, aunque sí sea así.
Perdón.
Okay, well, I want to say that thank you for everything that you said, and I want to talk about certain situations when we refuse or we do not decide to come out and accuse the aggressor, and many times what they do is they have affected our self-esteem or our self-worth, and we hold back.
Sí, entonces cuando ellos nos hacen creer que nadie nos va a escuchar, no queremos hablar con nadie, porque pensamos que realmente no nos van a escuchar, aunque sea así. Y lo digo porque así.
So whenever they tell us, they make us believe that nobody's going to be able to, or nobody's going to listen to us, and that is what they make us believe. And I want to say,
Entonces, lo que yo pienso que en el dado caso ustedes como profesionales es primero trabajar con la persona en su autoestima para que esa persona pueda abrirse, darle la confianza necesaria. Y lo digo porque yo en un momento hace más de 20 años me sucedieron ciertas cosas. Nunca denuncié lamentablemente porque no sabía y porque eso me hicieron creer que nadie me iba a escuchar.
okay, so you as professionals, I think that one of the first things that you need to do is to work with a person's self-esteem or self-worth. And I want to say that some things happened to me more than 20 years ago, but I did not come out, I did not say it, I did not bring it up because I didn't believe I would be listened to.
Ay. Entonces, pues hace 20 años sucedió y nunca denuncié por esa misma razón. Con el tiempo entendí que sí debía haber hablado en esas dos ocasiones. No sé si hoy día puedo exponer ese caso o no, ya pasó más de 20 años, pero hace poco entendí que eso fue, que mi autoestima estaba hasta abajo y que pensé que nadie me escucharía.
So this was more than 20 years ago, and I chose not to bring it up, not to say it. And now I understand that I should have brought it up. And I don't know if it is too late for me to bring up that case 20 years later. I wasn't sure back then. My self-esteem was just too low.
Eso es todo, gracias.
Le voy a responder en inglés, pero si quiere después puede hablar conmigo en español, nomás por el propósito de donde estamos tengo que contestar en inglés, ¿ok?
Igual conmigo.
Thank you so much for sharing. I want to let you know that even though for you it's 20 years ago, you know, we could still connect you with services after this meeting. If you would like to talk to me, I could talk to you about ongoing counseling sessions within our department and also with our community agencies. This is something that I often hear with a lot of my victims in my current caseload, where they feel that they can't report it because no one's going to believe them. And as a counselor, a social worker with APD, I want to let you know that I believe you. So I will advocate for you. I am here to listen to you. And if someone's telling you that what you are saying is not true, for me, I will be your strongest ally and advocate strongly for you. So again, after this meeting, if you want to come and talk to me, I'll be more than happy to provide some options for you. In regards to, did I wait too long to report, I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic to Detective Jimenez.
Igual, señor, lo voy a contestar en inglés, pero si quiere, platicamos después en español, ¿ok? So there is a statute of limitations in Texas for certain criminal offenses, and that defines how back in time you can go and charge somebody criminally. So depending on the violence that the crimes were committed against you is how far you can move back. However, we can still take a police report, we can still document it, and you can still get your story out about what happened to you, so that way you can say you reported it to the police, you spoke to counselors, and you move forward with the case to the most that you can. If we can't go back because of statute of limitations or something, then we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. But I think you should definitely tell your story, whatever that may be, whatever happened to you, you have a right to report it, and I would definitely say report it.
Thank you so much. And I do want to thank everyone for being here today and for participating in this event. I hope this event was helpful for you. I want to say a special thanks to our panelists, our notable guests who are here today. As mentioned, they will stay after to answer any questions that you may have. Also, ATXN for filming this event. We do have this event, will be in our QR code, which is in the back. Look at our Facebook, Instagram, X. It's going to be in English and Spanish. The event will be posted in these platforms in a few days. So in the back, you'll see a QR code. And please don't forget that there is going to be vendors back there at tables as well. Office Community Liaison has been very helpful. District representatives are here, as well as Safe Alliance. So please utilize the resource that we do have here if you have any questions. At this time, if those of you have the devices, please give it to those who are waving at you so they can return it back to the table. But again, we're here for you, and we want to provide the resources and support that you and everyone deserves. Thank you so much.